Hello everyone, we're going to make some pickled eggs today. We're going to make yellow pickled eggs. First thing I'm going to say is, first off, this is not a USDA approved canning recipe. I am going to can them because they're for my personal use and I feel that I can do it safely, but I want to say that if it gets messed up, you can get botulism from it. If you don't know what to look for and you don't use your sterilized jars and everything like that. But I'm going to take you through the steps to make the pickled eggs, and I'm going to show you how I can them. So what we need for this first recipe for the yellow pickled eggs is we're going to need a cup of sugar, a teaspoon of dill, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of mustard seed, a teaspoon or 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 medium onion thinly sliced. Depending on what you're going to make, you're going to need roughly, if you're making 6 half pints, that's 6 dozen, so 72 eggs. I do have eggs that are already peeled. I saved some just so that I can show you the process of how I peel them. You're going to need 3/4 cup of water and 1.25 cups of white vinegar. You can use apple cider vinegar, any other vinegar that you want for flavor. This recipe that I use just calls for distilled white vinegar. So I'm going to start off by putting my eggs into my boiling water here. Now I just kind of easily put them down in there, just like that. Now as we go, we want to take and give this a stir, so that your egg yolks don't sit on the side. As they're cooking, if you stir them up, if the eggs aren't sitting on the bottom, the yolk doesn't settle, and then it doesn't get real thin white on the one side. It's kind of hard to not get it, but it just helps. So I'm going to let these come up to a boil, and I'm going to start on my sauce, or my pickling juice. So I'm going to add my water, my vinegar. Now I'm actually going to save at least one of these measuring cups out because I'm going to use that to pour into my jars. Okay, get all my sugar. Okay. Got heat turned on here. Okay, and then I'm going to add my spices. So like I said, I got dill, garlic powder, and the recipe will be in the description. My mustard seed. And a little bit of the ingredients staying in the jar, or in the thimbles here. And my salt last. I give this a stir, make sure I get all the dill weed down, and make sure that it's getting incorporated into the pickling solution. So now pickling is a way of preserving your eggs. If you just take your pickling solution and put it in the fridge right after, you don't have to can it, you can just take and pour it over, let your jars cool, and then put it in the refrigerator, and they'll stay good 3 to 4 months. The way I have done it, and my family has done it from what I understand, we weren't real big on pickled eggs, but I found that I like them. So that's why I got back into it, and I have surplus of quail eggs, so I figured why not. So now that I've got pretty much everything incorporated, I'm going to take my thinly sliced, you want them pretty thin, so they're not, they're going to be kind of, what do I want to say, they're going to kind of wilt down so that they flow in between the eggs and the eggs don't sit on them. So add all these in. Now we're going to bring this up to a boil. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the heat and I'm going to let this steep while my eggs are in. The eggs are going to boil for, I do 10 minutes because they're easier to boil. And I figure, wow, they probably got 2 minutes boiling already because I was busy talking. You can add, if you want a little bit of a spicy pickled egg, you can add some crushed red pepper flake to this, and that will make it. I do have some recipes that I'm going to be making. I have a Grampy's spicy pickled eggs that just basically you take your pickled eggs, put them in a jar, you put the chili garlic paste over the top of it with jalapenos, and then you fill the jar up with the white vinegar, and that makes a very good pickled egg. I'll do a video on that here hopefully soon. But this is almost to a boil here. Grab my lid here in a second. Okay, so I'm going to put a lid on this. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, being that this is at a boil, I'm going to shut the heat off here in a second. I've got these going for another 7 minutes. Once these get done with the timer, I'll bring you back and I'll show you how I prepare them for peeling. So we'll see you in a second. Okay, so our eggs have been boiling for 10 minutes. I've got a bowl here full of cold water. Bring cups out of the other sink so I can drain my... So I'm going to take my eggs off the heat very carefully. What I do is I'm going to drain off the hot water into the sink. Be careful of the steam. Steam will burn you faster than hot water. Then I'm going to take and put my eggs into the cold water, and I'm going to run some cold water over the top of it. Now I'm going to let that go for about 10 minutes, and I'll bring you back and I'll show you how I peel them from here. So I'll be back in a second. We're back. The eggs are cool. I'm going to shut the water off. Alright, so the way I do this is I'm going to take, pardon my, gotta get a canning lid. My other canning lids are preheating for the canning process. So what I do is I'm going to take a quart mason jar, put my eggs into the mason jar. We're going to carefully put just a little bit of water in the mason jar. So I go about halfway up the mason jar. Put a lid on it. You don't have to screw that down gorilla tight, just tight enough that it's not going to leak. And then give it a shake for about 20 seconds. Not real vigorously, so you break the eggs open. I also already got, I don't know, I think they were probably 90 to 110 eggs already peeled for this. Okay, so then as you can see, the eggs are now soft. We're going to pour them back into our bowl. Now as we go, we want to save our eggshells. So as you can see, we're going to peel off from the fat end where the air sac is. And we're just going to peel around it. Now, if you boil them for 3 minutes, sometimes they come out okay. As you can see, they are a pain to peel. You can ask my wife. There's Bronx in the background crowing. I don't know if you can hear him or not. Bronx, we had our first batch of quail come through, and he got beat up real bad and is actually blind. Well, just as he's kind of our pet now, mascot. But he's learned how to eat on his own, how to drink. So he's got a special little place in the house, and he roams around and does his own thing and terrorizes the family with his crowing. So basically, like I said, all you're going to do, peel off where the air sac is as carefully as you can. If you break the white, and if you get a little break and nick in it, I'm fine with that. I put it in with the rest of them. But if you get an egg or a break that goes down to the yolk, then I'll take and I'll set it into a separate bowl. But I'm going to finish peeling these. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to finish peeling these, and then I'll bring you back once I get ready to do the canning or filling the eggs in the jars, and then so you don't have to sit here and watch me peel all these eggs. So I'll be right back. Alright, so I got all our eggs peeled. I've got my mason jars, my half pint mason jars in the oven sanitizing. I've got my lids over here in the hot water that was simmering. I got it turned off now. I decided over when I was peeling the eggs, I'm going to do one extra recipe. I'm going to do a blueberry pickled eggs. So I've got 1.5 cups of red wine vinegar, 1 packed cup of brown sugar, 1 cup of white sugar. I've got 1 cinnamon stick, and I broke it up into littler pieces just so that I could take and put a cinnamon stick in each of the different jars that I use. I've got 1/2 teaspoon of ground clove, or allspice, excuse me, and 1 teaspoon of whole cloves. Now I'm going to bring this up to a simmer. Oop, wrong button. Give this a quick stir. Make sure none of the sugar is dry on the bottom. You don't want the sugar to scorch. And then I'm going to add, I've got 2 cups, well 2¼ cups of blueberries here. I'm going to add about 2 cups. I'm going to save 1/4 cup roughly for putting in with the eggs. Okay. And this is actually my first time making this recipe, so we're going to see how these turn out. Take my lid, put my lid on here. That's going to help it heat up faster. So now I'm going to take my towel because I've got my hot jars, and I sanitize my jars. A lot of people will use hot water to sanitize their jars. I put mine in the oven. I bring it up to 200 degrees. I shut the oven off. I put the jars in. They're preheated to about 200 degrees then. And then that way they are sanitized. Close that back up. So now we're going to start with our yellow pickled egg recipe that we did. I'm going to make sure your hands are clean. I'm going to wash my hands real quick, because I got blue on them and I don't want any blue. Alright, so what I do is I'm going to take 4 at a time. And I'm going to do about 4 of these jars just to begin with. What I try to do is just to get them so that the 4 eggs are kind of a single layer on the bottom, because you can get 3 layers of 4 eggs into these jars. And the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my tongs and I'm going to add some onions to each jar. And I like putting some onions in between each layer. Now, if you're using a table, like a regular kitchen table, you want to make sure you have a heat barrier. Like I've got a towel down here, works alright. Because this isn't piping hot, I wouldn't want to put a 300 degree pan onto this table, but at the 200 degrees it does alright. It does get a little bit of a wave to it, as you can see when I move the towel off. It is an older table though, so we're going to come back with a little bit more onion. And you will have in this recipe enough to do 6 half pints or 6 dozen quail eggs. But I want to make sure that I've got enough because I want to do the blueberry. I want to make sure that I have enough eggs and everything to do everything I want. So therefore I'm just going to go through and do 4 of them to begin with. And then if I have more eggs after I get done with the blueberry ones, then I'll come and fill these up. Okay. Find a little bit smaller of an egg. Alright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill each jar up to roughly about 1/2 inch from the lid. And that's going to give us our head space. Now, like I said when I was talking to you in the introduction, it is not advised by the USDA to can pickled eggs. My opinion, and just this is exactly what it is, my opinion. If you know how to do canning and you know how to do it safely, they've done it for hundreds of years, however long they've preserved by pickling vegetables, eggs, everything. I do it for my personal use. These are shelf stable when you pickle them if you do it correctly, but you are taking a risk that you may have botulism or other foodborne illness. So therefore, like I said, you do at your own risk. Oh, I gotta do one more step. So I cleaned the lids to get the debris off. I'm going to shut my blueberries off because they came up to a boil. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a little bit of vinegar and wipe off the lids, because that's going to take and remove any like sugar or anything like that so that it makes a proper seal. Okay. Now I can get my lid. Come on. I don't want to cooperate. All right. Okay. Now we're going to take our lids and we're just going to put them on finger tight. Don't have to wrench them down. Matter of fact, if you wrench them down, they're not going to seal properly. So just finger tight, you know, just enough that they're snug down. Now, if you're making these for the first time, this is where you'd let them sit on the counter until they're cool to the touch. And then you can put them in the refrigerator. And like I said, they'll stay good for 3 to 4 months. Usually if you are making them, you like them, they're not going to last 3 to 4 months, especially a small batch like this. But what we're going to do is I'm going to place these in the canner. Got my 4 cans here. Quickly, like plain hot potato. Alright. So we're going to take and set that aside for a minute. I got my blueberry. I think what I'm going to do is add a slotted spoon here. So I'm going to take, ooh, that smells really good. Really good. This will stain your tables and that, so just to warn you, the blueberries do stain when they're... I think I'm just going to make up these 6 with blueberry. So come to think of it, I think that I would just stick with the 2 cups of blueberries and not do the other quarter to put in here, because you're going to have the blueberries from here. So just like before, I'm going to take my 4 eggs at a time into each jar. Whoop. Runaway egg. So now I'm going to add just a little bit more blueberries. Second layer of eggs. Now you can kind of press, don't press too hard, but because you don't want to break the eggs. But you want to make sure that you get them pressed down so you can get all 12 of them in there. So now is where I'm going to take and I'm going to kind of find some of the cinnamon sticks. I'm going to place the cinnamon stick into the jar. Hot. When you're doing this, be careful because it is hot. Screw some blueberries in. Okay, so now we're going to top it with our eggs. I might just go with 11 eggs, just because the blueberries take up a bit of room. I like showing that one. And I think I'm going to have to steal out an egg from here. There we go. Alright. So now, I'm going to take my 1 cup measuring cup. Carefully as you can, pour your pickling liquid into the cup, and we're going to fill these up to the 1/2 inch below the line. Alright, so I did a pretty good job getting, I've got a little bit of juice here left. The cloves are all distributed between them. So I'm going to take my washcloth, wipe down the lids. And I'm going to leave this one just a little bit lower just so that I know which one doesn't have all of the eggs in it. Take my try not to touch the rubber seal on these. Sometimes they get to be a pain when they get laid on top of one another. I got my bands. I'm missing the band somewhere. Oh. I know where it went. And on the lid that I was doing for shaking the eggs up. Alright, so now we're going to put these into the canner. Now my can, okay, as you can see, hit roughly 2 inches above. So now we're going to take this, we're going to place our lid on it, we're going to let it come to a boil, and then we're going to give it 15 minutes. So once we get done with the 15 minutes, I'll bring you back and I'll show you what we're doing next. Alright, so we're at a rolling boil here. We're going to set our timer for 15 minutes. Now, like I said, these get water bath for 15 minutes. We'll put the lid back on and we'll come right back once the timer's out. Alright, so our timer just went off. So now I'm going to carefully now when you take these off, always take and lift it away from you. Like I said, that steam is going to be hot. Now, you got my little jar picker. You can get these in the ball canning kits. Sorry, I don't know if my hair is a mess or not, but okay, so I'm going to go in here very carefully, lift the jars out. Don't tip them, lift them straight up. And then I just take and I put a hand towel on the counter and I put them right on that. The reason why you don't want to tip them is if you get any liquid, there's still air coming out of there, it can mess the seal up. Alright. Okay, so there's our pickled eggs. These will sit, cool down. I don't know if you can see or not, but the lids are kind of bowed up right now. They'll pop down and go dink, and then they're sealed. You know, let these cool all the way to room temperature. You're going to want, once they're cooled, you're always going to want to take the rings off of them. You take the rings off, that way if there's any botulism, any microorganisms growing in there, they create gas and the lids pop off. If the lids are popped, they're bad. If you leave the ring on them, they can create a false seal and it'll kind of hold that lid down and it won't pop up, but the seal will be broken and you'll still have microorganisms growing in it. So you always want to make sure when you store your jars, whether it be these eggs, like I said, not USDA approved, so make sure that you're doing it at your own risk. But always store them with them off. You can store them in a dark, cool room. If you got a storeroom, that works best with no windows. Basement is awesome. But so that's how I can my pickled eggs. I hope you enjoyed, and like I said, if you like the videos, please or hit the like button and subscribe. And for my family to yours, have a great day and God bless.